Spirit of Matter here on a Venus Day. And we are in Jupiter hour. Of course, we are in Jupiter hour, ascendant 6 degrees Leo, ruled by the Sun in Taurus, that is applying to conjunct Uranus on the 22nd degree. So yes, I will have my separate water expands upon cooling for that. And it would be good time to write about expendable leaders. And the midheaven is on the anaretic degree of Aries, with Mercury conjuncting Aries in Aries, so on Andromeda constellation, so reconciling that which was disincluded and seemed irreconcilable. Moon is in 19 degrees Gemini, separating from the hard aspect to Saturn. Hallelujah. And Jupiter is conjuncting Algol. So, the topic for today is Jupiter in Gemini during a mutable eclipse season. But before I'll begin with that, just a little bit of contemporary stuff that's been going on. So Jupiter is already on Algol, Beta Persei, which is a binary star that has 3 phases and eclipse each other every 3 days. Yesterday was an eclipse day for Algol, and unfortunately we saw cases of a case of a woman who was strangled. She was taken from a car, assaulted and strangled, which unfortunately is the conjoining of Jupiter, which rules Pisces, and Saturn in Pisces. The moon was square in Saturn, and the cars also Venus sign. And the throat area, which is both Taurus and the Algol, which talks about decapitations, cruel strangling. And unfortunately, such events do happen on a mundane level with Algol. Psychic, okay, this is something that I want you to have a tip for because it's getting more and more relevant for more and more people. If you're dealing with like the psychic realm, psychic attacks and so on, then when Algol eclipses, this happens every 3 days, people may try to have extra hard effort to pinpoint you. What you can do is to turn to Algol for defense, and also turn to Al-Qaid, which I will dedicate perhaps even a series of episodes, as I intend to point at preparing my first Al-Qaid talisman myself. And so, yes, we saw the mundane significations of Jupiter Algol. They are not pretty. However, when Algol is not eclipsing, okay, this means every 2 days out of 3, she's not eclipsing, we have Algol as a wealth creator. Okay, what happens when you're not psychically attacked? Yes, but you're informed of such things, so you have the wisdom. And also you are sound in your physicality and in your sensuality. Yes, what happens? You build wealth, you attract wealth. Okay, you make good decisions that are yielding, that are growing to something. Okay, and so this is where you grow your garden, you grow your food, you grow ethical wealth, you have good channeling, and so on and so forth. So Algol is very much also to be used for that. And that's contemporary astrology. Okay, now let's talk about Jupiter arriving at Gemini. So Jupiter, by the end of this month, even, I believe, is going to ingress into Gemini. It's going to meet Sedna there, and it's going to trine Pluto there. This is an encounter in itself that magnifies. Jupiter is the great magnifier of things. Okay, so, you know, if you have, let's say, God forbid, a tumor, Jupiter will make it bigger, and then perhaps you will treat it. But also, if you have something good happening in your life, Jupiter creates an even bigger event around these things. It is the benefic of the light, the daylight sect for those who do Hellenistic astrology. And is ruling over children, but also fathers, gurus, teachers, and the semen or the seed. And so if you think about, I talk a lot about Saturn in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter, as the sperm count, reality check to the sperm count and the connection to your beliefs. This is where the seed of something, for those who do, I'm not great on Kabbalah, and a lot of it is infiltrated by cults, but all of our sciences are infiltrated by cults, and we need to cleanse, to purify those. Then you think about the Yesod, okay, which is the foundation of something. Yes, for the Jupiterianus, I got the 444, which is foundations. Build 3 times 4, building foundations in my life. It's 3rd house for me, so maybe building a garden, which I've been doing. And now, when we talk about Jupiter, we are talking about the necessity to have a worldview that is expansive, optimistic, and belief in growth, yes, in order to have good seed, good semen, good sperm count. Okay, so for example, if you are in a cult that tells you that women are so and so, or that men are so and so, or that if you are gay, you will never be able to have children ethically, and so on, then these types of beliefs, they take away from the sperm count. Jupiter on Algol is a great reminder of the importance of acknowledging the hidden facets of reality, belief. Okay, we talk about energy is one world, or the astral body, or hidden dimensions, or even the spiritual dimension, and paying honor to those dimensions and being ethical with those dimensions. Just because somebody can't see you trying to grab a person, it doesn't mean that the cosmos is not aware of this, and this will be very important when we reach Sadhana. And Algol is also about the freedom to be proud and walk safely in your sensuality. Yes, regardless of your gender. Jupiter Algol is a great time to remind ourselves to purify, to let go, whether it's of victim blaming, of racism, or sexism, but also misogyny and misandria, and to allow the seed of our consciousness to have fertile soil and to grow with willing consent for those of you who are trying to go for children. So orgasmic conception and orgasmic birth that aid a great deal for the parenting experience and for the consciousness of the child. So this is how Jupiter is both the ruler of that which brings children, the guru, and the child, even in Vedic traditions. Okay, it's taken from Vedic traditions where is extra emphasis that a relationship, sexual relationship between the teacher and the child is incestual. Okay, so it holds, and Zeus was unfortunately committing incest. So it holds the dissonances that the teacher and the bringer of children is ruled by the ruler of children and of seed themselves, and the understanding that we need to be ethical around all these topics, lest we lose our fertility. Okay, we're supposed to create something that is working with the cosmos, with the ecosystem, and yes, eventually we're given a lot of chances to recover, to change, to this, to that. Saturn in Pisces, which is Jupiter's sign, this is a reality check. This is where you have, yes, I don't know, you have been growing in a cult, then you married someone, you want to bring children, no sperm count, not enough, okay? Not, of course, if for some charts you have it in the natal chart and it means other cosmic, maybe you're meant to tend to nature, maybe you're meant to do something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have problems with viewing women. I'm talking particularly about the Jupiter Algol and Saturn in Pisces, where you can see this affecting your sperm count. And yes, of course, the sperm goes through the penis, so also the erection, but this is more to do with the Aries eclipses. Now, the ingress to Gemini. May 26, yes, and I emphasize again that having problems with fertility doesn't mean that you are a cultist or that you have problems with your worldview, okay? It's, you know, that A is giving B doesn't mean that B is giving A, okay? But if you are with this occultist mindset, it is taken away from your life energy and away from your sperm count as well. Now let's talk about the ingress. The ingress happens on May 26, and this is for some of you May 25 already, okay, depending on where you are. Upon this ingress, Pluto is retrograde in 1 degree Aquarius, so Jupiter is already trining Pluto, and Jupiter is conjuncting Sedna. Everything Sedna is going to be big, magnified. And Sedna has to do with being true to yourself. Jupiter is also associated with philosophy, higher thinking, so also truth. And so being true to your own philosophy, religion or the lack of, spiritual practice, not betraying yourself is going to be very important, because with Sedna we have the themes of betrayal. What happened when, as a society, we do not accommodate for the children that don't want to marry out of coercion, the way it is done in the tribe, okay? Ancient Inuit practice. This is the ancient Inuit goddess, okay? And it was about a child that did not want to marry the husbands that were offered to her. And then there are several versions. One of them is one man offered her freedom. He came from another tribe, offered her freedom, but he didn't deliver upon this. Her father tried to save her. Another version is that her father just decided to sell her to some man, that he will take care of her because he knew that he would die. Okay, so he could not take care of his daughter. If there's no man to take care of her, how will she survive? Who will hunt for her? Although Inuit community was very tribal, okay, it was very communion. But still they did not have this place for dignity where the child could be free in a relationship. So the theme of freedom are very associated with Sedna, okay? And so for most of us who were born after like the 60s, towards the 70s, Sedna is already in Taurus. Before that, we had Sedna in Aries, and so people were sometimes betrayed or based on their identity in Aries. You have to see what planet is in Taurus, based on a sexuality. Yes, so willing consent, but also the rise of throat singing, which is Inuit tradition, which is healing for the sex chakra as well. And now in Gemini, she will be for 4 decades. And the issues are social issues, technological issues. Gemini is the sign of civil. If there is conflict, then civil conflict, of playing the devil's advocate, of information wars, and it's bringing in the mutable axis again. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, which is on the mutable axis. Sagittarius is opposing Gemini, and Pisces is opposing Virgo. So Virgo, Gemini ruled by Mercury, and Jupiter ruling Sag and Pisces. Now we're going to have the eclipse nodes moving towards Pisces and Virgo, and the eclipses themselves moving towards Pisces and Virgo. So the first eclipse of Pisces will go directly to the eclipses. Directly to the eclipses, and then I'm looking for the eclipses. So the site I'm using, by the way, recently had a birthday. This is astroseek.com. and say big happy birthday to Peter, who is the founder and the person who runs this thing for free for all of us. And he doesn't even accept donations. So this is just a gift to humanity that allows people who are not so good with calculations to do, yes, here eclipses, to do astrology completely for free. Of course, if you want to make money from astrology, it is suggested to put money into, yes, so if you have, whether it's program or whether it's teachings and courses, I always like to do it when I have. Right now it's more going into talismans, but in astrological magic. But this is a great platform for people who don't have the ability to calculate or who want to understand astrology, and don't yet have the money to put into the let's say the industry. So now let's talk about the Pisces eclipse, September 18, 2024. So very close. We have the first Pisces eclipse with Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter is going to be 20 degrees Gemini. Chiron is going to be on the 22nd degree of Aries. Immediately I looked at this Chiron. And Mars is going to be in Cancer, which is already meaning this Chiron is involved by the merit of the ruler of Chiron being ruled by the moon, and the moon, of course, is involved in eclipses. So this is lunar eclipse, partial lunar eclipse on 25 degrees Pisces and Virgo, which activates 25 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini, which means Jupiter is involved in this eclipse, making it even bigger. Now, yes, it's not the solar eclipse on Aries, it's not the 2017 and the 2024, it's not the Me Too and the possibility of extradition of Julian Assange here in 2024, and so on. But it is the what happened in between. And what happened in the last eclipse cycle we had on mutable axis. That was when Rahu was in Gemini, my nodal return, and Ketu was in Sagittarius. Okay? And you want to think about eclipses as an X or a cross. Okay? There's a cross. There's the mutable axis, there's the head of the dragon, the tail of the dragon, but there are also the wings. Okay, dragons. So we're talking about the wings, which means the other signs of the same, yes, modality. I think it is modality. Yes, not element, it's modality. So if we have mutable axis, all the signs of the mutable axis around the same degree are experiencing this eclipse. This is how come we had a cardinal axis, okay, with Aries and Libra, and all the Rahu Ketus on Cancer and Capricorn were having crazy times. Yes, I'm not talking about certain leaders that have placements in Aries, or countries like Netherlands that have placements in Aries, prominent placements in Aries. You see, Netherlands is becoming leader of the opposition to the left, okay? Both structurally and in many ways. You had Benjamin Netanyahu calling Rutte, the prime minister of Netherlands, before he addressed the 7th of October. So the first thing he called Netherlands, like, why Netherlands? Okay, it's a small country. Yes, it's the international court. Why Netherlands? So this is where this eclipse has exposed certain things. Pardon. Okay. So, but it also triggered the Cancer, Capricorn, anybody that has prominent placements, especially Rahu and Ketu, have been feeling this tremendously. So now we're moving to the next axis, the mutable. What happened the last time we had the mutable axis activated? That was 2021 to 2022. Or 2021 to 2021, 2022, or even 2020, 2022. At that time, we had COVID. So this is the same axis that will be activated in nodal reversal in 2030. So 2030, we will be having Rahu in Sagittarius and the Ketu in Gemini. This is the same eclipse cycle. So this means that we are applying the policies that the cardinal axis began. If, for example, the cardinal axis began certain policies to do with emergency cases, emergency situations in the world, whether it is going all the way back to 2017 with the cardinal axis. Okay, so we're talking about Assange beginning to serve time for basically doing journalism ethically. We're talking about the Me Too wave, where most people that tried to expose the things, they were already addressing issues that are pertaining more than just, sexual harassment, sexual boundary violation, which is horrid. But also the scientific question, the silencing of people around research. I know I was dealing with that. I'm highly unlikely to have been the only person who dealt with that. And it's very likely that most of these people were silenced tremendously and even did not survive. And so, and I guess this is where the power is nourishing for those who did survive to speak when they can. And then we had COVID. So all of the things like not being able to rely on your doctor, not being able to be seen, not being able to take a walk to calm your nervous system, not being able to have a valid medical discourse that takes accountability, and the fact that the vaccine, because the menstruation is the fifth vital sign, so people noticed it. You usually don't count your sperm by eyes, okay? You need a microscope. But for the menstruation, yes, it's impossible not to notice that. And so you see changes to the menstruation cycle was so prevalent. So all these things that the Me Too veterans were already beginning to address, and they were not veterans, but it was very fresh, then all these things now became into fruition, okay? And we said time and time again, it's like we told you so. It's not just the menstruation. Check sperm count. Check the sperm count. You will see changes. It's tending to fertility, yes, but the people will not listen. Doctors were fired, were assassinated very likely, and so on and so forth. So now we are having this axis activated again. This time with Pisces and Virgo. And Jupiter making this even bigger. The topic of sperm count is very likely that many people that try to have children following the vaccines Okay, not just COVID. Some people said there is no virus. No, there is medical warfare. They came up with the virus and they were spreading the virus. Naturally, people whose immune system, when they walk in nature, when they have enough money to support the nervous system, so they walk on fertile soil, so they work in the garden, so they have the people around them. Of course, these people had more immunity than people who are already isolated, already not having money to go in the yard. It's different. When I was during COVID, I was in lockdown, quarantine 2 times. 2 times, not because of me. Someone came to visit me, they met someone. So I understood that the one-room apartment that I am living in, which for me, as half Israeli, half Dutch, I thought in Netherlands I would never get something bigger. Okay, and there's no way. Maybe if I was super rich, Epstein affiliated rich type, then maybe I could get a little boat and a little tiny big house in the north. But I thought it's more than enough, and it's close to the place, to the university. I understood that to spend 2 weeks in this one-room apartment, even with the toilet there and the kitchen there and the shower there, I realized that this is not possible, that I have to move away. But even this was very difficult for me, and I was trying and looking, and then there was a crisis that I literally fled the place. So this was on my 4th house, with Rao in my 4th house. But people very much understood that if you have such policies, such lockdowns, such a thing happening where you cannot order food, or stuff getting stuck, you need to live in a freaking mansion with a freaking big yard. I'm not even talking about growing your food. I'm talking about walking barefoot on the soil, so you wouldn't get cuckoo. So many domestic violence cases were added. Okay, and now we are tending to that again with Jupiter involved. Jupiter magnifies. Jupiter rules children, rules teachers, philosophies, religion. This one is going to be very religious oriented. Saturn in Pisces denotes of both radical religions, like I call this the Ayatollahs of every religion. So in yours they have the Mormons. In Judaism, they have, I don't know, Naturei Karta, I don't know even. In Islam, they have the radical Islam. And there's a leader, right-wing leader in Netherlands that has been in home imprisonment in Netherlands for 25 years just because he said Muhammad was a rapist for sleeping with 6-year-old Aisha. We don't want this rapist indoctrination in our schools. Okay, just for saying that, with 1,000 times emphasizing that anybody who's not endorsing that can stay, he was threatened with types of threats that are ritual violence. Okay, so ritualistic violence. You see the description of the threats, that this is a ritual. Yes, in my opinion, the Op Dei and the other sects and hidden societies are very much involved. But it's in any case, you see that there is the radicalization of religion, but also the radicalization of secularism. And there's a little bit of a split when it comes to Gemini. What happens when we had Rahu in Gemini? You were either a tree-hugging person that doesn't know a thing about medicine and thinks that all doctors are horrid, or you were a person who has been proud and carrying, a tattoo of Pfizer, and yes, I am this, I vaccinated 3 times, and so on. And this beautiful thing, in Netherlands, the word for vaccination is vaccinatie. So to be in between houses in this country when during lockdowns, it was one of the experiences that I don't wish upon you, but it was definitely entertaining by the time I got to catch up with with what actually happened. And so last time, that was this conversation. And everybody who offered an actual critical thinking argument was casted away from scientific journals that are no longer scientific to the community of spiritual woo-woos that are probably also cult affiliated. Yes. Now we are getting there again with Jupiter. So this is going to be about religion. Okay. Either you think all, I don't know, Islamic people want to sleep with children and fuck goats, or you are a Muhammad hugging pedo. Okay. There's no two-way, no in between. Jupiter is religious. Jupiter is philosophy. Okay. So this is probably going to be a very annoying time for humanity. This happens with Neptune still in 28 degrees Pisces. And this is the first round of eclipse. Jupiter is already in the last phase of Gemini. I don't remember what the last phase of Gemini is about. So, but you can add that on, okay, to your analysis. Jupiter is, of course, in detriment in the sign opposite to the sign that it rules. If Mercury in Gemini is about our fingerprints, our hands, our ears, our limbs, Jupiter is about the feet. So we're thinking about the toes of the feet and the fingerprints in the toes of the feet. We are thinking about the issues that came up with Saturn and Gemini. I talked about this. But we're also talking about making the little things big. So one of the things when Jupiter is now in Taurus, one of the things that I saw, I was shopping for cucumbers. I'm not joking. I was shopping for cucumbers and they looked like, I know some cultures that would put this in a shrine to worship this as a fertility symbol. Okay. After the war, everybody wanted to buy local agriculture. I said, first give people good labor, first that. And then, of course, I went to buy local agriculture and I bought a pomegranate that was as big as my head. And my head is fairly sized, okay? It's not tiny. That was Jupiter in Taurus, huge fruits, huge yield. For those who invested in affiliated things, then perhaps this was, I was just growing my garden. But Jupiter in Gemini, it can give huge hands. You remember the Leonardo da Vinci paintings of women? You see the hands were very big. And yes, Mercury is also ruling pictures. So the paintings of women had big, big hands. And this is Jupiter. So we might see the limbs very big, the hands very big, the ears big. This can also be Jupiter. But also making the little things there becoming bigger and bigger. And I was talking about the humorous, very macabre humorous situation about the whole digital ID and biometric everything. So you would have in Israel now, you can order a passport without going to the Ministry of Interior. Feel free to laugh at us if you could do it in your country long time ago. But and this is a startup nation, but with Mercury in Aldebaran, mind you. But you have to have a biometric data already in the Ministry of Interior Affairs. So you cannot do it if you don't want your fingerprint sold to some organized crime and money laundering and whatnot. And at this time that they're doing this, we had more casualties that had amputation of limbs than ever before in battle. Okay, so you think about the juxtapositions of these two. Mercury also rules humor. With the trine to Pluto, it's a very macabre humor. Okay, where it's like, yes, you can order, if you have the finger, and telling that to a veteran, and so on and so forth. So it brings in for very hilarious situations. They do test our loyalty to ourselves, in the sense that with Sedna, because Sedna was not accommodated for, she was basically, her father cut off her fingers. He, in some versions, tried to save her, but he couldn't. And he cut off her fingers. She delved into the ocean. So she was betrayed by her father, and the tribe could not accommodate for her. And eventually, she's not by the father, but the whole tribe. She became the goddess of the underworld and the goddess of the sea creatures. Okay, Inuit lived around sea. And they mainly fed themselves from the sea life. They grew agriculture, but mainly from the sea life. And her hair became imbued with the animals of the sea, and they had to revere Sedna to get food. So because this Sedna did not have food when she was a daughter, now for everyone to have food, they have to worship Sedna. But what is Sedna teaching us? It's teaching us that we need to accommodate for new types of respect each time Sedna ingresses. In Taurus, we need to account for land, for material resources, for different types of appearances, for the voices, many voices of people. Not just the voices that are trendy, okay? And we might not agree, but we need to account for the voices, and less, we won't have food. If we didn't listen, okay, to the women that were talking about sexual harassment in 2017, we wouldn't hear the many men to whom it happened to. Okay, but also not only that, if we didn't listen how they were assaulted again in the psychiatric facilities and in the psychological facilities and in the police, then we wouldn't know what is coming. Those who went under this, when they were hearing about the vaccine, no, maybe it's not from, how do you know that this is from the side effects of the vaccine? Yeah, we know this, yeah, salamat. Okay, salamat. Goeiedag. Ga weg. Salamat. Bye-bye. But for the people who are new to this, they were thinking, yes, maybe it's not from vaccine. And then it took a couple of months until the voices were no longer silenced about the menstrual system. What about sperm count? Would they even let you to test your sperm count when you're not trying to currently have children? Now you understand. Now you're being treated the same as the woman, or the same as the man with the womb. Okay? This is the same thing with Sedna. If we don't accommodate for the people in our society that require freedom in relation. Because why did Sedna reject all these men? Why did she not want this man or that man or that man? She wanted to be free. She wanted to be free, but if she cannot be free in a relationship, then she cannot have a relationship, because she would have to betray herself. And in that tribe, she died because of this. But what happened after she died, the entire tribe had to repent and worship Sedna so that they will have seafood. That's the story of Sedna. That's the story that's been activated upon the ingress. And as the eclipse cycle progresses into, into the depth of Gemini, we will be having Sedna involved eclipses. Okay, the last time we had the big involved eclipses was with Aries, and Aries in Aries. That was when I said Aries in Aries, I said, if somebody defines themselves as a bowl of salad, let them. Like, don't die over trying to correct anybody's pronoun. What I was not seeing coming was anti-Semitism and the eugenics discourse. And I'm like, what? Really? This is so funny. This is so hilarious. But that's also what we thought in 2017 when they were sexually harassing women. And I was like, why the fuck would we be doing that? It's bad for your sperm count. It's horrible for your erection. It's insanely disastrous for your will to live. Why on earth would you be sexually harassing a woman and at your workplace, of all things? Okay, but then we discovered that there are really fucked up beliefs that are coming from I don't know where and are imbued in humanity to destroy itself, to control humanity. It's bad for sperm count, it's bad for fertility, it's bad for all these things. And it's, even when you put technology in, you still have to address this. Okay? So now we have the same thing again, but people talk about, anti-Semitism, anti-this, anti-that, instead of addressing the actual issue, which is the distribution of wealth and the many identity control policies. Because if you have kind of a psychological control of somebody's identity, you sort of like you own the person. And that for the people is learning about the sovereignty of their identity. Okay, the I, what Tom Jacobs called I alone define who I am, is the solar chakra and the sonic thoughts in Aries. But now we're going to have an even bigger one. The last time we had eclipses with Sedna, we had COVID. What was COVID? A huge warfare-made, man-made pandemic. Yes, there was a virus. It's not that there was a fiction of a virus, there was a story. In Taurus, it is substantial. The word, but it was warfare. Okay? It was warfare. And yes, even when you have a virus, even when you have such thing, the people that are affected are the people that don't have the land, the resources, the connection to both nature, to the people, that their support system is weak to begin with, and their immune system is weak to begin with, and they're the people that have it the worst. Unless they are particularly assassinated and targeted, and of course that was inflated, so every death was COVID. Yes, but the issue was that the solution that was offered was, of course, even more destructive. So this is why they create the problem to bring the solution. Sedna, conjoinal goal during the break of COVID and the eclipses involving Sedna, the eclipses of the lockdown, the eclipses of Pfizer, and of course the Ukraine war that was also breaking, the Ukraine-Russia war that was also breaking. The war cases unfortunately happened there too. And so Sedna was about this, this eclipse was about the great betrayal. I think the Maui case was already happening there, but I'm not sure. So great themes of betrayal around sexual assault and stuff like that. If you're asking about the isolation of women of the 7th of October in Israel, this is already Sedna in Gemini. So I think this is also Sedna in Gemini. So this was not the case for this. It was more the Algol and the fact that Israel did not honor sexual assault survivors from the get-go. Okay, this was infiltration of the sovereignty of Israel that was allowed because the son of Israel is conjoining Algol. Is very, very dangerous for Israel to disrespect sexual boundary violation survivors and to disrespect those who are considered crazy. Okay, because it's also dealing with psychic attack. It's very dangerous, and indeed Israel was invaded, and it took 8 to 12 hours for the army to respond. So the invasion was all this big that soldiers could not disobey legal order, while the prime minister was calling Rutte in Netherlands for reasons that we really don't understand. And so, but we do know that the farmers around all Europe, including Netherlands, particularly Netherlands, were very pissed about the confiscation of land in favor of 2030 agenda in the name of cow farts. But that was the Sedna. We took the food from certain girls, from certain women, okay, in Taurus, and then the entire world had food problem. We did not accommodate for the physical needs of certain people, and then the entire world. And Taurus is a lot about willing consent. the middle decan of Toran, thanks Austin Kopok, is a lot about the need to have willing consent within a situation where you are having sexual rapport, you are having sexual attraction. Okay, and this the need to balance work, labor with rest. Yes, so this is where I have the sun in this decan, constantly talk about the value of willing consent and biodiversity. And I have my own problem with working too much or finding it difficult to do something. But in the third decan of Taurus is where things resolve and where we have the fifth lunar mansion. Now, when we talk about the Gemini axis and the Sedna involved eclipses, then Sedna involved eclipses are going to already be more towards the end of this cycle. Let's see, we have 7 September 2025 is the middle phase, and Sedna would still be in the first phase. And then, 2026, August 28th is where we can expect already the Sedna involved eclipse. And this is where the moon is going to be it's a lunar eclipse. Moon is going to be on 4 degrees Pisces next to Fomalhaut, and the sun 4 degrees Virgo, of course, which triggers the first 4 degrees, or the first 4 to 10 degrees of Gemini. We're going to have Uranus in Gemini with all that it entails. Jupiter is no longer going to be the issue. I know it's the topic of this episode, but I cannot not talk about Sedna here. And this eclipse will highly involve Sedna. Neptune will no longer be involved in this eclipse directly because it will be co-present in Aries. It will be after the new cycle of Jupiter and Neptune, but we do have Sedna eclipse. Because Sedna takes so long, then we don't have a living person remembering a Sedna involved eclipse. Okay, I'm not talking about the Taurus one, but in Gemini, we don't have recollection of that, of any living person. And it's going to be involving Uranus. So we're talking about August 2026 already. And this is with Ketu conjoining Regulus. This means to me that there are going to be tremendous changes, tremendous changes to royal families, to wow, is I don't know how many times we had such a thing in history, in modern history that we know of mankind. And this is not yet Rahu Ketu on Sedna. Okay, Rahu Ketu on Sedna, we will have to wait another half a decade to have the Rahu Ketu on Sedna. In the 2030s, we will have Ketu with Sedna. Okay, this is why 2030. This is why Agenda 2030. Why 2030? Because not just Uranus and Gemini, not just Rahu and Ketu on the axis that rules entertainment industry. By the way, the only surviving house in Maui was of, I think it was Whoopi Goldberg. Bizarre. As a person who, as a member of, this axis around Ketu, I have the exact nodal reversal with Richard Feynman, that I'm have been receiving a lot from for this life direction. And he knew the cult, but he also whistle blew on the cult. The term cult like sciences addresses that. Yes, he was not a saint, but he whistle blew even in his life about the cult, okay, because he knew what they do there. You have to be a member of this cult to be in his position. And so when we have Ketu with Sedna, which is going to be in the 2030s, let's go a little towards there because it matters. So we're going to this eclipse chart, 5 December 2029. We have another eclipse. Uranus already in the middle phase. It's just spiking up, but this is 13 degrees Sag. And of course, Sedna will still be on the very first degrees, so we're not getting there just yet. We're going to go to the next decade. 2029, I want to see the next decade. I want to see solar and lunar. Do I have ability to do it here? Let's just do it that way. And go to 2020, but to 2030. So 2029 we begin. Then we have 10 degrees Gemini. And November 25, 2030, we have a total solar eclipse. I don't remember where this one is. I think it's on the Arab Peninsula, but I'm not sure. And I know that in Saudi Arabia, they're building this city that looks like the Berlin Wall and market it as an advanced city. So this is going to be Sun and Moon in Sagittarius with Ketu conjoining Saturn in, and of course, very likely conjoining Sedna. Let's bring Sedna in. So we want to, just as I'm searching for Sedna here, I want to say, we want to pay attention to what happens the end of May when Jupiter ingresses into Gemini and meets Sedna and trines Pluto. Okay, and we want to take a hold. We want to work with Sedna. We want to work with Pluto. We want to work with Jupiter. We want to work with Gemini. Reclaim our egregore. Those of you who are doing it are a billion steps forward to those that are only beginning. I'm a pre-eclipse child, so it's both a pro and con. It's both a privilege and difficulty, yes. But it's eclipse for me to look at this. But if you are looking at this, then this is also your privilege that I'm sharing this information with you. Because you can tend to Sedna, you can honor Sedna, you can learn what we learned from Sedna. You can be where you can set intention to be inclusive of the people that you need to be inclusive of. Whistleblowers are very important on this axis. You would say, oh, the cardinal axis brought up the Julian Assange. Yes, because Julian Assange was an entrepreneur in this prospect, but he worked with whistleblowers. Okay? And whistleblowers is spreading information. Gemini is so important for this. So, accommodating for whistleblowers, creating structures that allow for whistleblowers to be protected regardless of any organization. Is most of the people you see homeless are in some way in this position because some people did not want them to speak and tell what they know. So some of them had to flee the country, some to the company, some the family. And sometimes what seems like domestic violence is basically somebody in the family is in feud or involved in a cult. You first think it's organized crime, but it's the upper echelons is actually when people want to get out of cults, sometimes they have to rely on organized crime because let's say this crime, they do everything, but they don't hurt children in that way. So you go work with them because it's preferred from the cult, and nobody would hire you to a job because with the cult infiltrated the workplaces. Okay, not just corporational, but if it's a small business, then they are at risk from protection. Okay, so now they have another problem. It's really difficult to make a living. Gemini is definitely addressing this. And with Ketu and Gemini and Rahu in Sagittarius, we are going to be forced to look at the bigger picture. We're letting, basically with Ketu conjoined Saturn, we're letting go of the city structure. There's nothing in Sagittarius that is a city structure. 15-minute city? For Rahu in Sagittarius? And look where Jupiter is with Rahu. 2030, the world is actually going out of the cities. But what do they want to do? Is they want to put everyone in the cities and then like that in concentration camp, destroy everybody. So that would be democide. So to bring in a one world religion. Yes, we have Jupiter, we have Venus, we have the Sun and Moon, we have Mercury, we have a huge stellium in Sagittarius. And we have Lilith with Uranus at the end of Gemini. And we have Ketu with Saturn and Sedna. Sedna still 4 degrees Gemini. And Vesta in 1 degree Gemini. Vesta retrograde, Sedna retrograde. We basically have a Ketu on betrayal. And a Rahu on looking at the bigger picture, big life philosophy that is accommodating for the Sun, the Moon, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury. For children, for women, for leaders, for people. And so the attempts to take a hold, to take control, to put everybody in the city and then kill them, okay, of 2030, no can do, finita la commedia, no can do. Ketu with Sedna, the end of betrayal. People stop betraying themselves. As of children disobedient. Social conflicts, okay, are not going to be tended to in the way of Gemini. They're not going to be tended to with playing the devil's advocate and the juristics and so on and the trade. No, new philosophy, expansion. Everybody has enough. There is enough land. There is enough for all men. There is enough women. For all women, there is enough men. You gay, there is enough for you. To have children, no problem. Children, there is enough. You want to be child-free, no problem. There is enough. Jupiter is the sign of expansion, growth, the bigger picture, optimism. It can be great illusion as well. But it's also so incompatible of 2030 agenda. They want the entire humanity dead by 2030 because whoever will survive, not only will they be disobedient, they will not be on they will be on another platform, another frequency. It's almost like another planet. There's no place for the 15-minute city in the world after 2030. No place for this. many new religions, not one religion, many new religions. Mercury is the multiplicity of. This is why Mercury is, by the way, in detriment in Sagittarius, because it creates diversity of beliefs, even conflict. It has the duality thing. And then you see that usually when we have belief system, we want it to be congruent, we want it to be all-encompassing, we want our cosmology to work, but for the world to survive is needing also the place for growth and for diversity. So they say we will have a one world religion and off with the old order. Yes, but also off with the people who live in the cities. And who are these people? These are old people. These are rebels as well. These are the Lilith people, the people who wouldn't succumb to, let's say, a power relation that is not compatible with equality. Okay, so they think we're going to kill both the elderly and the free people. And with Sedna, Saturn is kind of like karmic betrayal, but it's also the girls that wouldn't marry or the boys that wouldn't marry. So we're going to take all these non-procreative people and the rebels, the unusual rebels, the unusual sexuality. We're going to take this all down, and then we'll have one world religion. But you think to house them in 15-minute cities? You understand this is going to be very weird. So Jupiter, as it ingresses into Gemini, right as of the end of this month, and when it begins to be involved, okay, it's involved with the first eclipse in Gemini, is already bringing in those themes. And one by one, you see that the attempts to create an artificial world order is collapsing very naturally. And I want to talk about a little bit about these natural things, and I'm going to bring in Richard Feynman. So Richard Feynman talked about this ceremony where people have that the sun is crossing the horizon and people wake up and they do this weird thing with brushing their teeth. Because scientists tell them, he said, who says that this is healthy? We have no scientific evidence. All we have is cult-like science. And when I first heard this, I was like, Feynman, what do you have against brushing your teeth in the morning? But what I didn't know, he was atomic scientist veteran. And he worked on Manhattan Project as a young scientist. And he knew that one of the byproducts of the Industrial Revolution was fluoride with other toxins, and they didn't know what to do with this fluoride. Then came Manhattan Project. And when Manhattan Project came, they said, oh, let's use it. We need to use, when you want to use atoms, okay, and create nuclear energy, you need to basically it is either fusion or fission. So either press them, so crush them together until they emit energy, they crush condensed within, or you do the opposite of tearing them apart, and that both of them, when they reach a nuclear level, they create energy. This is where you have the A bomb, then the H bomb, and the fusion of them, which would be the Tsar bomba or stuff like that. And this is where they said, okay, we have this byproduct for never mind, fluoride, whatever it is, it has an atom in it, but bring it in. We can tear it apart, we can condense it, we can create energy. We created atomic energy. And there was there's still attempts, all these talks of fusion energy. When we talk nuclei, we talk Pluto. Pluto is sextiling Neptune. Nuclear energy leaks. This is why Marie Curie died. We haven't got a hold of that. And in a world where we cannot trust the ethics of our medication, of our medical field, to really preserve all the data of all the people that die from every experiment, you cannot trust that. It's not because we are humanly incapable of doing that. It's because we won't be able to do that when we betray the people who die in these experiments, and we don't count them in on the evidence-based research that we do propose that looks like science, but is actually cult-like science, because the cult decides on the funding and who gets to be funded. Only positive results are shared, and it's very easy to omit the detail, and it's almost impossible. And people were assassinated for bringing the data, the truth, the science into the science. It's not something you would expect an astrologer to explain to you about. But you know, one of the reasons I came to this is because I saw in academia there's no way I can talk about actual science within the academia. I have to get out. Okay? And people are interested in astrology, and I began to identify patterns in astrology, and that's basically how I became an astrologer. Now, another thing is that let's talk about the Pluto generation of Gemini, which was, okay, the final was Pluto Cancer, but the Pluto generation of Gemini were the people that build the bombs. Now, what happens when Pluto is in Sagittarius? In my Navamsha, I have Pluto's in Sagittarius, that's a chart you grow into, and I noticed that I identify a lot with Gen Zers. A lot of things I agree with Gen Zers, especially about work. And the neurodivergence, like, how come? I realized that my Navamsha, the D9 chart, has Pluto on, I don't remember if it's sidereal or tropical Sagittarius. Yes, but that would be right now actually the Capricorn, so closer to the Gen Alpha, but the later Gen Z, or the end of Sagittarius, which would be my midheaven. And that means that Pluto, the Pluto Sagittarius are around 7 generations after the Pluto Geminis. What is the most prevalent word for Gen Zers? Neurodivergent. What is the most prominent features of neurodivergent people? They disobey. They wouldn't pass a Turing test. They don't understand your gaslighting, so they don't respond to it, so they just say the awkward thing anyway. They can't stand these noises. They can't stand these weird frequencies. They can't stand all these things. They can't commit an action from the beginning to end in one go. They have to have their own sensory safe space. They have to have a job that allows them to express themselves. Okay, Gen Zers, where everything, the dumb fuckery of trying to send heat to my heel will not help. You will just burn your brain. Thank you. Then the dumb fuckery of attempting to put Gen Zers in some sort of a scheme. If they can't express themselves, they become ill and they make everyone around them crazy as well. Okay, Gen Zers neurodivergence is the side effect of neurotoxicity and the remedy to the situation that created that, which is industrial society, in which, you know, the famous film was the Charlie Chaplin's film of modern times, where you see him kind of like making this screwing, you know, motions with his hands after work because it's so monotonic, and then getting mixed in the wheels of the big machine. Okay, so the result was the Gen Zer, the result was the neurodivergence of the world. And I happen to have my midheaven there. So you can imagine that for a career. Mind you, I have a Uranus in the 10th house in my Rasi, in my tropical Rasi, which is the natal chart. So it's a very weird combination, and Ketu with Cassandra asteroid, which means the I told you so asteroid. So so while my Ra is growing into that Gemini, into that 15-minute city that nobody likes for a good reason, and maybe even owning estates there, which I'm trying to like, how do I get a way around this? But also, I don't have money to own an estate currently. But also, we cannot ignore how the case of neurodivergence is just a way of nature to correct itself. After the Industrial Revolution, people can't tolerate this. Everybody wants to do something creative. Everybody wants to own a house with a yard and grow food. themselves or to be able to travel the world. Everybody wanted for the million passports, okay? People are not agreeing to shrink themselves when they are in this position. The very ailment induces this state where you can no longer with the old order. But the new order that they try to instill is not compatible with Gen Zers. Not compatible with neurodivergent. And the children that are born with Saturn in Pisces and Uranus in Gemini, I can't even. Like, we are having a generation of Nick Drakes. Nick Drake was a very prominent, I think, Gemini sun. And my email, Made to Love Magic, is on the name of the album and the song by Nick Drake. I was very lucky to be introduced, actually by a Sagittarius sun. When I was in high school, I was doing a soundtrack for my tiny movie, and then somebody came in with this track, with this music, that and some Neil Young, and this was how I was privileged to know Nick Drake. And so he was very good with technique of playing guitar and writing songs, and he was also the what people call the 27 Club, which some way says the Saturn Return Club. I think Gigi Young has a fantastic video on this, and she was not even all that familiar with astrology when she did it, so it's very genius of her in her pre-Christian era. What I have to say about this is that those generation of people, they cannot obey. They have something to give the world, whether it's musical or artistic. Recently, some children were born there. There was people who were like tremendous fears and like, how will they survive the Saturn return? Well, we the people must make sure that we allow them to have a way of being that is independent of the industrialized society. Those are the people that will, if there is industrialized society, there will be the Charlie Chaplin. There will be the Bjork. Bjork has Saturn in Aquarius. Also, Leah, by the way, has Saturn in Aquarius. It is sidereal Aquarius, but it is tropical Pisces. Those children not compatible at all with, they will not be, they will just either die off or simply not be able to obey. And so you see how all the stacks are against the New World Order. Everything is against the New World Order. All the stacks are against the New World Order. To do it like Trump, all the stacks are against the New World Order. Everything is against the New World Order. All the stacks are against the New World Order. There's nothing meaningful in that imposed New World Order. Because yes, the world is going towards a New World Order, but it's not compatible with imposing something. And Pluto is going to be 9 degrees Aquarius, sextile in Neptune in 10 degrees Aries. So people will be longing for a sense of identity that is in alignment with a sense of community. That Neptune in Aries per se can bring a lot of illusions and disillusionment, and that, I guess, is what those who try to kind of oppress the world are playing on, because they try to preserve the wealth in the age where, and I talked about this eclipse. Let's go back again to the 2029 eclipse with okay, this one is the eclipse with Sedna. Yes, but let's go back to the eclipse in 2026. And why am I saying that? This is because yes, this is because the eclipse in 2026 in August, I think it is. Yes, Friday, 28 August 2026, we have Ketu conjunct in Regulus. Regulus is the planet of royalty, the fixed star the royal star of royalty. The most prominent royal families are being tattooed, so some can die. But definitely we're changing something very significant. And this is already happening with the Keter now in Pisces and Virgo. The people who preserve the power for the elite, it is the royal families. And we need to see, let's see if I can see where is the 2026 eclipse falling. So, yes, 2026 eclipses. I want to see if we have places in the world. So we have a solar eclipse on 2026. Where is it falling? I want to see solar and lunar eclipses worldwide. Okay, fine. I want to see where they are seen in the world. So August 2026 is falling on France and Spain. And I think this is Greenland or Iceland already. No, Iceland is there. This is Greenland. Yeah. And oh, this is probably China, Russia, right? Because that's Norway and Finland, so we're talking China. A little bit of China. Now let's take a look at the lunar. Okay, so the lunar is circling Europe and Africa, but not touching. Like, is that what's up? Partial lunar eclipse? No, I'm not sure what is it. It's the March 3rd, and then so if the bright one is China, this is so not so easy to understand. Total solar eclipse on August. Detailed eclipse map. But I don't see that. Total lunar eclipse. Blood moon. Yep. Not that useful for me. Okay, so East Europe, Asia, Australia, North America, South America, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Antarctica, South Antarctica. So this is East Europe, the Americas, Asia, Australia, Pacific, Indian Ocean, Arctic, Antarctica. It's very interesting. So it's very likely that the real estate and the natural resources owned by certain royalties there will yield a certain change that perhaps will expose something about the royal families and through there. And so I suspect that while this is going to affect these regions are associated with certain royalties, and those royalties are going to be ketued, which means they will have to let go and receive ancient wisdom or perish. Okay, so certain kings and queens might be deceased. Ketu on Regulus is very likely to be the monarchy itself. Okay, the view of monarchy itself is ketued. We for this cycle of eclipses, okay, because there's also going to be the 2035 eclipses in China, where we're going to have Rahu approaching Regulus, and then we might ideate or we might bring a new view of royalty per se. So just when we talk about 2026, we are going to be, the royalties are very likely going to be exposed. My prediction is, let's take a look at this chart again. Like, what will they be exposed to? But it's very likely to be natural resources. Ketu Sun can be gold. Maybe some earthquake exposes something. Okay, with this T-square with Uranus is very likely to unleash. Yes, but although Uranus is in an air sign, so something to do with revolts, but it's not a very populated area. Maybe something to do with sea life, with Pisces involved, Jupiter in Leo. It can be that we will have some of the islands where they kept, where maybe royalties did things that are not so to the public eye, or maybe they have bunkers there. It's just something maybe to do with children and child trade that is exposed here. Kind of like maybe Epstein is kind of like still alive there, and then you see like the many royal families gather up because there's something that they would be exposed for, very likely, that will cause us to will cause many people to not appreciate those the monarchy, even like from Asia and stuff. So this is where we are going away from monarchy, but this is eclipse. Okay, so this is not the Pluto in Aquarius, the French Revolution. It's not that yet. We have this cycle of eclipses alongside Regulus every 9 years. Okay, so sometimes Rahu, we would turn to the strong leader. Sometimes Ketu, we devalue the strong leader, we send them away. And this is important to note. So this is not like, oh, people are going to have a change from monarchy setting to a more democratic setting or decentralized setting for a very long time. It is an eclipse. So eclipse is fated, but it's not like an ingress of an asteroid with the eclipse that's going to do that necessarily. It's very likely that the monarchies themselves are going to be exposed. We're not going to like them very much, and then they will change their behavior in the past 2 and 3 decades, and they will regain their kind of like regain their place in the world with ethic standards that are more compatible for the current times. So this is, for example, if you look at Saudi Arabia, where they had let women drive, or Arab countries, Muslim countries, declaring that they let women wear whatever they want. So to kind of appeal with certain standards that are more attractive to today's global society and investors. And that is what I predict for that. So it's like an exposure, they correct their behavior, and they regain their position. That will very likely change when we have a big asteroid hitting that. Okay, we'll have a Chiron, where we have, yes, absolutely, Pluto in Aquarius is changes to the monarchy, but we saw even with the French Revolution, there are still monarchies. And so the British monarchy survived, most of the Nordic monarchies survived, African monarchies, Middle Eastern monarchies survived. Yes, we just had another country that was the United States, and maybe the United States will have a new declaration of independence. And that is very likely what they're trying to establish now. So that there would be kind of like a fall of the old United States, but a rise. So to survive the Pluto transit, they should have actually a new declaration of independence, in my opinion, because it's very difficult with one chart to survive a Pluto cycle. It's 300 years, and to reinstate a Declaration of Independence would be appropriate, and to pick an election that is fit for our times. So you look at the bigger planets, you look at Aries, you look at Sedna, and it's good for we the people to know about astrological considerations for declarations of independence, which is my series here on YouTube, because it's not rocket science, and it's important for us to know that our nation has a chart, and that this chart, if let's say we have moon on the 22nd degree of any sign, it means that the people are killed, genocided. In the natal chart was elected for the people to be an army. In Hamas chart, you see those things with Mercury, I think, and with Jupiter involved, where Saturn in Jupiter's sign, 22nd degree, and children are used as army. And this is, it doesn't, and I don't blame this on Islamic countries. We don't know who the founders are, but this is a chart, and it was elected, and we see the policy. Yeah, I don't have IDF chart. I have Israel chart, and Israel, like I said, Sun on Algol, Sun in the 8th house, also US Sun in the 8th house. It means that the leaders are funded by external resources. It infiltrates the sovereignty of the states. United States was founded with a breach in the sovereignty of the state. Of course, they wanted to put the leader in a bad placement, but you could do it with the Sun in Libra. You could do it with just not putting the Sun in the 9th house, so you don't have like an exalted king or queen, but to put the Sun in the 8th house, it just means that it's a hidden control by monarchies. That's what it means. Or that the leaders are controlled by certain fiscal elites. So hidden power is true for every Sun in the 8th house chart of nation. Unfortunately, Israel and United States have such charts. This is, by the way, why I politically disagree with the claims that US or Israel rule the world or rule each other. I think they're more played by kind of like a third entity that infiltrates the sovereignty of both nations. And I think that would be the more correct analysis for that. So, Jupiter Gemini. So that was not a Jupiter Gemini per se. I think other astrologers tended to Jupiter Gemini, and greatly so. The last time Jupiter was in Gemini, if you take it 12 years backwards, from 2024, 2025, we are talking about 2012, 2013. So I was beginning my first degree. A lot of changes. A lot of I don't feel like changing residence now. But yes, so you see, I began higher education actually. And you want to think, when was Jupiter in Gemini? What happened for you then? This is more in the line. Of course, Jupiter is making Gemini things big. So if you have technology, you're gonna have big, the huge cell phones? With the cell phones, with the huge, anybody remembers the cell phones with the screens that you can't even hold in your hands? This is Jupiter Gemini. Okay, something big that is technological. Big hands, big cell phones, big technology. But also, when something runs bad, like a bug or something, it is a big bug. Okay, it's a huge, for example, if you, let's say, make a mistake with technology or something is not, okay, it's going to be like an April Fool day for a year, messages, texts, okay, so when Mercury is retrograde, it's going to be big Mercury retrogrades, because Jupiter is making these retrogrades big. So we're going to be caught with a big foot in our big mouth and going to making big fools out of ourselves. So brace yourself for a lot of humor. I'm trying to think about what happened to me there. No, I was just starting my first degree, I was painting spheres, by the way. Yes, and it was in linguistics and English linguistics and politics and governance. Yes, this my ninth house is to do so language and politics of international arena. What's more Pluto Gemini? Pluto Gemini. Nou ja, Jupiter Gemini. Children. Okay, if you're having babies, they might be a little bigger than expected. So big children, big infants as well. We might have philosopher children. You know, I watched Krasia Tasio, and she and mother sitting in Bulgaria, which is fascinating. I got so much from Bulgaria. I'm using rose essential oil. Is originating in Bulgaria. The wisdom here originated. I had a best friend from Bulgaria, so I don't know what is my good karma with Bulgaria that I'm appreciative. But Krasitasio was talking about a child. I don't remember the name, and I also am ideologically opposed to certain practices of this because some of these prophet children are SRA children. Not talking about this child, but this child was a prophet. And this child has prophecies that are coming to fruition today. And he talked about the rise of a Russian Tsar, I think. I haven't seen all the things. It's like a series that you have with English transcription. And I was so excited to hear what this child has to say. Then I got immediately channeling that's like, hey, those children sometimes are SRA'd, and so sometimes those child prophets are a result of not natural occurrence but child abuse, sometimes natural occurrence, but if this like coming from like a big tsar or a monarchy, then this can be this can be channeled from monarchy supportive forces. So again, I don't know, but Jupiter Gemini is the rise of child prophets. So we want to be particularly cautious when it's coming to abuse of children or disrespect. Although this child was worshipped, yes, because at that culture they worship children that bring disinformation. But we want to be cautious about this, that we respect the children and that we let them to have a childhood. But definitely children will have philosophical inclination. We can have child prophets that are big. Okay, Jupiter is the sign of prophecy. It is the sign of philosophy. It's the sign of religion and spirituality. And Gemini rules children. Children are inherently psychic. I think that the stuff like Rudolf Steiner, and again, another caution sign is kind of like when the signs you put on a cigarette, it's like that could give you cancer in the bad direction. And sometimes people say, I don't care, I need to smoke. But we know that Rudolf Steiner was Rosicrucian. However, he did talk about the pre-verbal stage of children and how we should not be quick to teach our children to read and write, because this is interfering with their ability to develop their psychic abilities, their inherent psychic abilities, intuition and imagination. And that's something to take into consideration. So I don't have children myself. I was very psychic as a child, and it has pros and cons. My case was not as terrible as the people that were taken to a cult and went to abuse, so I was saved from that. I still understand that there was infiltration of the psyche of children, and we might talk about this as well. We might be raising awareness to who's fumbling with the psyche of our children, and when we talk with them, we have more access. For those children that talk, yes, it's not all of them talk, but we have more access to what's going on there. So child prophets is another thing. Big technology, we said. Victor talked about flying cars. Absolutely. It already exists, but we're going to, pull it up and do something about it, very likely. Yes, what else? Gemini. Gemini is kind of like also the courtroom systems, the debate. So we're going to have big cases, big debates, big juristic cases. You know, when you have like the, I don't know, like the Ferguson case, big debates between secular and religious, okay, kind of like this famous, it's going to be quite an entertaining time. People will be getting more involved with religious discussion and with juristics discussion. A philosophy of juristics is going to be at place, not from the Libra balancing place, but from the devil's advocate place, from the importance of conflict and for the discourse, for celebrating various opinions, various perceptions about heuristics. For example, the British mandate was in the Middle East was very affected by the previous mandate that was the Ottoman Empire. So most of the British law that we pride in and we said, oh, this is how Winston Churchill said, we are superior in our culture to other cultures. You are just descendant of the Roman Empire in terms of heuristic, which is the Supreme Court, which is basically how you run the place, how you make decisions, also fiscally, financially, and socially, and morally. So basically that means that the great British Empire had inherited its juristic philosophy from the Ottoman Empire. And then, you know, when you talk about, let's say, the Israeli law, it is affected both by Bible origins and by the Ottoman Empire and that preceded the British Mandate. Okay, this is a very juppy Gemini. Gemini is the, if you know the Hebrew word, or maybe the even Arabic word, tachles. Tachles, you, Queen of England, King of England, make your fiscal decisions based on Islamic law. Okay? And you, Islamic country, make your decision based off British mandate law. Okay? So, this is a lot of tachlis. So tachlis, in praxis, what's happening in praxis? In praxis is your juristic system with Gemini, okay? Because it's Mercury ruled. So tachlis, what will be the verdict? According to what rules will be the verdict? According to what religious philosophy will be the verdict? Islam. Still, today, most of the world. Okay? So, is it good? Is it bad? Oh, it's definitely what we need to change. But tachlis, your superior culture, plays by the rule of Islamic juristic system. And this is very Juppy Gemini. Juppy Gemini is informed, but also if there are mistakes, okay, they're going to be big. They're going to be huge mistakes. One of the people that were shining during this era were the certain things that Donald Trump didn't know or pretended not to know. Okay? This is the chicken of the sea kind of mistakes, and we'll all be having them. So it's going to be very entertaining time. And because it is during certain eclipses on the cardinal axis, so Jupiter is going to be for one, maybe two eclipses there, we're going to have some fated huge mistakes and fated huge debates and fated huge maybe child prophets and fated huge misinformations and exposures. This is the cycle of eclipses where we are living out the implication of the cardinal eclipse and we apply them. Okay. So we also need to look at what is going to happen in the coming months with people like Julian Assange, who is the founder of WikiLeaks, again to do with information wars, and what will be the implications. Okay? So the event is fated. What is to happen is fated. We don't know what will happen, but what is to happen is fated. And then there are the implications of these fated events. Some of the people, especially the Gen Zers, are going to say, we don't give a flying F. Not about Assange, but about anybody that tells us what science is. Would you know what science is? So she's look at what you did to Assange. What you know what science is? What politics is? You tell me this country commits genocide. Why is Julian Assange not? And it's not for this country, it's another country. Julian Assange was by the United States. So who knows? Why should I believe you? You're American. Look what you did to Assange. Okay? We're going to be having these conversations. And Gen Zers, they're neurodivergent. They do not have a filter. Gemini, you don't have a filter. Just take the Gemini archetype of not having a filter to begin with. Gemini is like a child. You meet a person, you say, you come into the room. Gemini say, why are your nose so big? Oh, you have huge breasts. Okay? Why you have butt so tiny? This is Jupiter Gemini, but big. So when it comes to political information, look what you did to Assange. You talk to me. You have that in concentration camp here in America today. You talk to me about genocide. In Congo, what's another diversion tactic? They're building a bomb, so they fluoridize the water. Okay, but what you're not going to have is the filter to say, oh, I should really shut up about this. It's the sign after Taurus. Taurus was the eloquent. It was singing about this. It was writing a vlog about this. It was writing a poem about this. Gemini is like, why are you not so big? Why a nation act like China but blames China on what it does? You're the customers of China. Okay? That's pretty much what's going to be. And don't prepare the popcorn so you wouldn't choke on it, because you're going to be dying in laughter. Because Jupiter Gemini, you could choke on a popcorn. It's like Saturn is still in Pisces, so if there are going to be funny deaths as well. So you don't want to be lethally amusing, because the person that's bringing the popcorn can choke on it. So you want to make sure you save your airways for satire, so everyone can enjoy safely. The whistleblowers of Boeing. Can we talk about this? I actually had a person on Twitter that they don't like Israel, so they said, I heard Israel was a whistleblower of Boeing because they hope they will assassinate us. So while I have a more global level of analysis for political events, I found this joke to be indeed very funny, because we have at least a dozen of Boeing whistleblowers that were unalived. And unfortunately, with Jupiter Gemini, it's like if you don't tend to this now, it's going to get even bigger. Boeing, of course, is one of the biggest planes that we have, the biggest commercial planes that we have. And so the endearing 747s. Now, this is a very sad moment for aviation, but it's also, the people that finally got out of COVID and wanted to save the family, so they booked a vacation somewhere, and then they multiplied themselves away from domestic violence. Those who could afford this. So we had the COVID boomers. They were using airplanes, so you don't want the plane to crash until you're finally out of the lockdown. And we have a lot of aviation warfare associated. It's about people, kind of like the plane hijacks or the attempts to hijack the plane, attempts to work on the navigating system of the plane, kind of like people telling pilots to go through enemy countries, and all that jolly stuff is back again. Jupiter Gemini is not going to make it less problematic. So a lot of hackings, but also funny incidents on airplanes will be big. Be careful when Mercury is retrograde in particular. So, and then, yes, I'm not going to tell you not to travel and won't be able to. Some of those trips are eclipsed, they're fated. But definitely aviation issues are going to be big, even bigger when Gemini is involved, even with Ketu in Virgo, which is another sign of technology. So already as of 2026, already as of 2025, in 2024 even, we're going to be having eclipses that are involving Virgo, and there's another big technology. So, but the difference between Gemini and Virgo is that Gemini just doesn't know if it will work and it will try anything. Virgo is most certain that they have covered every single detail. So those are going to be especially embarrassing. Those are going to be the bombardier type of those are going to be the bombardier mistakes. Those are going to be the Rolls-Royce mistakes. Those are going to be the big companies that we always relied on having big embarrassing moments. And Virgo is not an earth sign, it's a mutable land sign. And this is, the chip making companies, we should be especially kind of like, it asks Virgo to tone down the hubris of we make it 100% with no mistakes. You can count on us in anywhere, and so on and so forth. And is pertaining also to information authors that we relied on. So some of them we will discover they were in a cult. A lot of reality checks on spirituality. I said that there's going to be a lot of humor on spirituality, especially as Neptune is going to move to Aries. So the satires that we've seen a couple of decades ago on Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, we're seeing them again. This is not Jupiter Gemini, but Jupiter Gemini is definitely the religious satire. But I think in Gemini, because it's air sign, we're going to see more kind of Monty Pythons. And I said it a lot. We have the Jews are coming for the Jews. It's a Jewish satire on Judaism, secular Jews, kind of laughing at the King David was a rapist, and so on and so forth. The rabbinical discourse, kind of like the rabbinical people that were mistaken for others, the Rambam and Ramban, and then we have Monty Python, which is classic. So I think this is ample time to have another Monty Python. I encourage you to study some theosophy and write some satires, because don't let just the cult do it. Do it yourself, right? Take a hold of our egregore, regain a power, write our own satire, because the satire that I've seen, I've seen some funny skits, but they weren't touching what satire is supposed to touch, which is the core of the issue. Jupiter Gemini is a beautiful time for religious satire, even in the eclipses with Rahu in Pisces. So Rahu will be in Pisces and Jupiter will be in Gemini, still in the beginning before it turns to Cancer, it is exalted. So as long as Jupiter in Gemini, please, may somebody write the satires that we don't have. I'm interested to see African satires on African gods. I'm sure that there is. Muslim satires on Islam. It's so missing for the world, and it's putting Islam in such position where it's way easier to pass on as not Islamophobe as it is to pass on as not anti-Semitic. Why? Because the Jews criticize themselves and the Muslims, they just kill people who do satire on Islam. Okay, the Jews are coming, the Christians have Monty Python. Islam, we don't hear satire on Islam by Islamic people in Arabic that is translated to other languages. We need to see that. So I really hope this will come about. But also satires on secular thinkers, satires on the cult. Okay, I'm having strong memes of denucleify, your pineal gland, absolutely, but also decultify your pineal gland. Okay, we really need to see more of that. So targeting religion and the lack of religion, and basically pinpointing every satirical dissonance around this. One of the beautiful posts I saw on the Facebook today with Jupi Algo was that the spiritual teachings that the universe doesn't know what no is. Okay, I had actually a relationship coach friend, and she told me about Abraham Hicks and all that, and she said, well, the universe doesn't know what no is. Yes, and I said, well, this is kind of like what, the universe is a rapist. But indeed we find out that the gurus that were teaching us spirituality, they were rapists. So they tell you focus on what you do want, which is a good thing, but it's also important to denucleify what we need to denucleify, which is what we don't want. We need to disintegrate it from the components that make it powerful over what we do want, okay? And that, of course, has to be in alignment with like the universe and stuff. And so all of these inversions, all of these kind of, satanistic cults, Luciferian cults, that's the time, especially when Jupiter is with Saturn trining Pluto, it's the best time to. The Flying Bombardier was written with the ingress of Saturn to Gemini and trine Pluto under the 7th of October war, kind of like under life threat. And so that's something I'd really like to see. Any more combinations of Jupiter Gemini that I wasn't thinking about? So we talked about aviation children, prophet children, philosophical children, philosophy of education, especially for children, schooling for children. Another issue that keep coming up again, which I like to see is going to become even bigger. The philosophies through which, and Jupiter is bringing this. Jupiter is the anthroposophy. Jupiter is the, grow your child in nature and don't write them in a digital ID and so on and so forth. But we have to beware of the cult aspect of it. So the hidden cult that the children are not even registered. This kind of have its duality that comes with Gemini and with Pisces. Yes, we talk about satire, religious satire. We talked about the ingress, playing the type of debates, entertaining debates. You think about Judge Judy's kind of thing. Yes, who was also accused of sexual harassment and enabling sexual harassment eventually, which is very fascinating. So the entertaining, people will be watching juristics for entertainment, and will be entertaining in theosophical debates. So you think about the scientist versus the religious leader, and you understand they both go to the same cult and ritually rape children at the end of the day. So that's just what's up. Anything more? Big bugs, big technology, getting caught with your foot in the mouth. Don't do popcorn. Don't choose, treat yourself as a child. If you're in any way Jupiterian, treat yourself as a child in that era. This means not putting into your mouth small things. Okay, this is not a lack of inclusivity upon penises. This is about, or big penises. This is about food, okay? So if you talk about food ingestion, What I said, don't, it's like don't bring the popcorn. I'm very serious on this because Saturn is in Pisces sign. It's the sign of death and reality check. And Jupiter is optimistic about small things, and Gemini is something small. So if it's like you have Gemini in like the second house, you can run the risk of choking. If it's not in your books, don't put it in there. So this is where you want to snap, and if you eat fish, then the bones, yes, kind of like that. Don't eat fish with bones. Don't eat small things. Treat yourself as you would a child. And think for this year, would you give a child to eat that? Okay, and also in terms of sugar and children, giving children sugar. So kind of like debates on that. We're going to see that again. Brainstorming is big with that one. Which is what I'm doing right now. Think tank groups, the pros and cons in every belief system, pragmatism, but also how we get ourselves into funny corners with our belief systems is going to be widely explored in general. Anything mercurial with Jupiter is kind of like working on your belief system. So the Virgo Pisces is kind of like, well, your beliefs affect your health. But they forget to mention that, let's say you went through so and so and so and so and so. So you take the one person that came out with a weird belief and say, let's adopt this weird belief that saved them from having the implications of this trauma. And you find out that it's not as easy as you thought. And so while the insight that beliefs are associated with our health is important and is life-giving, but can also be taken to hubris, where we say to a poor person, it's because you have a lack mindset that you are that you are poor. They say how to fix that lack mindset. Well, you need to walk on soil with bare foot. He said, I live in the city. You need to get out of the city. I don't have a driving license. Don't have a car. Okay? Well, you need to surround yourself with people that are like-minded people. Yes, they live in Sedona, Arizona. I live in Gaza. Okay, so this is where we get that type of hubris and that type of extremism that is so associated with Jupiter as well. Where you push something to the farthest of what you can do with that. And this will also be applied to engineering and technology. You find out a new tool, what can I do with that? Okay, when I discovered channeling, I was channeling eventually for 6 months with no stop. Okay, it was very, it was life-changing. I'm in a different place today. But definitely you can see it as this, and it was Jupiter in my first house. I channeled with my body, and I traveled while channeling, okay? So this was taking something, say a technology, a belief system, and running with it to see what can it do for you, and to see what the boundaries are. And with Jupiter, it is expansive, so it wants to push the boundary. And this is something with less discussed about Zeus and about Jupiter. It wants to push the boundaries of something. Then nothing is impossible. Okay? And when we talk about debate, so we say disposition or the entirety opposite of disposition. So what is the flip coin of being super expansive and super optimistic? Okay, what is the flip side? It's being super pessimistic. And this gives it a bit of an all or nothing thinking orientation. Well, we saw during Pfizer, either you're a tree hugger that think that the doctors are all stupid, or you are, a sheep, a cloned sheep that puts 1,000 of toxins in your brain, which will eventually correct itself and yield, neurodivergent children. But now we have Jupiter, so this is more about your religious beliefs. So either you are, worshipping the black cube, Or you tried, like me, to worship the white cube, which is a tiny air conditioner that I bought. I bought 2 of these. And I found out that this is a very handy air conditioner. It cools the hand. That's the max that it would do. And my cat manages to sleep in really unreasonable conditions to me recording a podcast. That I find impressive. So I think that was Jupiter Gemini. I think we covered the eclipses. I think we covered why Jupiter Gemini is involved with the Pisces eclipses already, and how the mutable eclipses are just applying and refining what the cardinal eclipses started. Okay? And this is so important. This is how the Me Too veterans knew that when they're told, oh, this is not from the vaccine, this is the last time they're agreeing to see a doctor, because they were not going to run through the whole thing. They've already been through that with, let's say, psychiatry or anti-anxiety pills or stuff like that. Whereas the people who were not in this and were not really believing the Me Too people, were not really tending to them, then they were putting all the shots in their body volitionally, and maybe thinking it's not from the vaccine when they started losing the ability to procreate. But this is also leading to nature correcting itself. So there is a lot of what was started is continuing. What was started is refined. Okay, if you said no to your boss in 2017, you basically said no to the cult. Okay, and then you went to psychologist. He was also from the cult, so you said no to the psychologist. And then you said they send you to psychiatrist. You said no to the psychiatrist, because this was the continuation of saying no to your boss in 2016, 2017. But if you were enabling the cult, this was happening around you, and you thought, oh, she is like this, she is like that, she is this, she is that. Okay, then you will catch it on the vaccine, on the many shots that you shot to your body while you're trying to conceive a baby. Yes, for some, be pregnant will be successful. For some, will be problems with birthing. Okay, I see many times when a person wants to have a child of a different gender, they are going through the healing from that gender. So women could have a lot of boys, and then they only could have a girl when they were dealing to things with their own inner child, if they were, let's say, women, or with women if they were men. Okay, expanded to the rest of the genders as well. Or they were supposed to have a transgender child or something like that, and they had fertility issues because they had to heal that within themselves, and so on. So this is a lot of things to do. Yes, I'm 40 and I'm still tending to my own inner child. And so while I see many people around me dealing with these things and having babies, I am still responsible to tend to my inner child and not volitionally do something like this before I can be a parent, psychologically and physically, of course. So we will be also looking at those type of stuff also this year. Okay, but the spiritual experiences and not psychological, but more spiritual kind of procedures to go through when, let's say, you had only daughters, but you didn't have a boy. Okay, so what are you delving into there? And I know for one of the people that accompanied me was letting go, allowing things to be and letting go, and that opened them to have a daughter, opened them to a journey that was fascinating, and it began with letting go of even having a daughter, and so they thought they're at peace with not having kids, and I saw this many times, that the first child came with the parents were already at peace. Sometimes the parents were told that they cannot have a child. They were at peace, and I know one woman who got off the pills The day she got off the pills, she got pregnant. She was told that she will never be able to have kids right after she married. Yes? So there's nothing wrong with being child-free, of course. It also serves a role in our society and is welcomed in our ecosystem. But that is also a thing that I think Jupiter Gemini is going to tend to. How do your religious beliefs accommodate? If you, let's say, come from a religious family, when your daughter is supposed to be a more free type of person, even a Sedna type of person, if she wants freedom, her freedom is more important to her than to have a husband and so on. And the survival considerations have to accommodate for her. Then sometimes it will even be that you will not be able to conceive a child until you go through a certain acceptance or certain path for accommodation for this child yourself. When I began to tend to my fertility, by the way, I did this not for children, but to heal my second sex chakra, okay, the relational chakra and my creativity chakra, and to have energy. And I said, I want to tend to this. And it was before the COVID vaccines, okay, which, by the way, the first 2 shots, because it came in one and the other very near, I did because there was an infant of a baby, okay, a baby was born to our neighbors, and I did not want to endanger this baby. So I did take the 2 shots, and the third one I already had to take because I fled to Netherlands. And that was, it's kind of, I was joking about this already. I say you have to inject to get high. So and I was listening in 2018 to a song that's called Flying High with No ID, and this is exactly what happened because the passport was not with me, the Dutch one. And the neighbor helped to bring it there. So this was very, very mind-opening to how tending to the fertility, tending to the gynecology as a dying profession, the way it is practiced today, because it does not accommodate for the womb. The ontological unit of a woman is just not accommodated for in current gynecology. And looking into philosophy of medicine, I actually knew what I was talking about. And actually talked about with a lot of women that did kind of like herbal medicine and stuff like that, and they saw many unnecessary surgeries around the womb. But it's not just around the womb. I had fellow dentist, Facebook friend that had us going to the second surgery of the knee, and he was told he wouldn't be able to play his favorite sport if he doesn't do a surgery. And so, of course, he did that surgery, and we told him, please don't. Then he had to go to another surgery. And yes, I hope he's getting well in spite of the the treatments that were offered to him. And this was bad because he was doing subsidized teeth treatment to people, fully subsidized teeth treatment to people that could not afford this. So you see that it's not just with the womb. But that as this journey kind of continued, it tending to kind of like the maternal relation, the motherland. So after COVID, there was the first the Ukraine war, was when I came back from Netherlands, and that was my fatherland, and the awareness of the language. I didn't know that I would have difficulty to speak my father tongue, and why is still interesting today. And I understand that I got my father language from my mother because the parents were divorced. So and how what we think of nationality, I changed my view on nationality because I didn't think much of it. I just don't have a way to get housing in there, so I can't even try to live there, and that's it. And so, funnily enough, the shelter there was more accommodating than the solutions I had in Israel when I was escaping violence. And eventually, yes, the war in Israel. And then I tended to SRA, so children who are survivors of trafficking rings, attempts to be kidnapped, and so on and so forth. And you see all of that from just tending to my second sex chakra to fertility chakra. Now I'm in a lunar year, which is super, fifth house year, which is ruled by Cancer and the moon for me tropically. Super, super lunar. And so you see this issue, how this issue is coming up again. On the Jupiter level, on the Jupiter Gemini level, it's going to be more about your beliefs and both sperm count, but also the ability to have children. How, and it's not about blaming you for having the wrong beliefs, because those beliefs are originating in some sort of experiences. With Saturn in Pisces, it denotes ancestral relation that is changing. Okay, so to have children, let's say 3 centuries ago or 2 decades ago, it was different than to have children today. And also the role of children. Some of these children are fated children. I'm a fellow pre-eclipse child. And there are different roles for the children today. Okay, the children that will be, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, or even 10 years old in 2030 will be the children of Saturn square Uranus, and the children of Saturn in Pisces. And the children of Saturn Neptune conjunction, and the children of Uranus in Gemini. So you cannot get more disobedient than this, I believe. And they are the children that will be supposed to be in the New World Order. So this is it's some of the things that actually were very relieving for me to know. And I understand that there are very special roles for children and how to continue our ancestral story. I'm the daughter of my grandfather. My grandfather was around 40 during the Second World War. I'm 40 years old today in Israel. So he was Holocaust survivor. And the Ukraine war began right after I came back from Europe. So he was living in Sarnia, which is next to Kiev. So I'm also my grandmother's daughter. Also the daughter of my ancestry, some of which is something that is not able to be talked about. I also have a family name that is connected with the word blood, and perhaps was targeted for what my supposed bloodline or my actual bloodline. Fortunately not physically kidnapped. But it's things I also learned only right now, and some channelings I received even as pertaining to cold cases in the Netherlands. And those things are things that the Jupiter Gemini will explore in a more light-hearted, but no less significant. Because what's going underneath the ground when we are talking about these media wars and media debates and big entertainment is always something deeper that underlies these dualities. Okay, Mercury itself, that rules Gemini, is not a simple planet, and you can mark these words right now. Okay, you can mark these words because Mercury is not a simple planet. We're in 2 hours 13 minutes. Mercury is the gate to the underworld. It's Hermes. It is alchemy. It is the psychopomp, the one that accompanies us as we cross over. So when we talk about mercurial things, it is never as light-hearted as it seems to be. Mercury is the sign of cunning, trickery, and lies. It is also the sign of unprecedented truth and trustworthiness. Well, many people lie because they're not allowed to tell the truth. What happened to truthers and whistleblowers in our society? How does this affect our relationships with our children, intimate relationships, friendships, alliances, business world, juristics world, trade, economy? The society is large. there is something incredibly deep in the bundle of dissonances that both Gemini and Mercury hold. And we should not underestimate not the playfulness and not the seriousness under the playfulness. And Jupiter is going to make all of that big. The Jupiter Gemini is, or Jupiter Mercury is, God is in the little details. Okay? A little detail can tell you about something. For example, just one video I did before, I had a viewer that was coming with a swastika but inverted. I told him the swastika is inverted, you need to call to Apollo. This is the swastika that Nazis used as inversion. He told me this is Falun Gong. And what I know Falun Gong, of course, is persecuted and the organs are trafficked. But what I also know is China has this policy to abolish cults. China does not take cults. It doesn't like cults. We don't know if it was infiltrated by secret societies. Unfortunately, it is possible that yes, but it doesn't like cults. Inside the country, you don't grow your own religion, you don't grow your own cult. And they deal it very, very vehemently. The Falun Gong, yes, they're persecuted, what's done to them is terrible. But also, they're a cult that operates under the guise of love and freedom. And we see here that the swastika that they're using is not the swastika of the love and peace and so on and so forth. That is using it under the guise of. Okay? Very much like it was used during the Nazi era. And I didn't know that about the Falun Gong. I had no idea that they're working with the swastika. Definitely, I had no idea that it is in the inverted direction, to the direction of what we know in the West as Apollo, or to the direction that is denoting of upright, okay, or love, peace, health, and wealth or prosperity. And so, just by this detail, just by me paying attention to this detail and being not politically correct, then I learned this is the Falun Gong, that I learned that the Falun Gong is also associated with those inverted religions. And the way they're persecuted is not okay, but also what they're doing is not okay. Okay, China does have the right to abolish infiltration of cults into the national sovereignty. And we see that when it's not done like in Europe or like in the United States, you have all kinds of cults and secret societies. You have a country like modern Iran that literally has a flag with an owl wearing a tie on it. And it looks cute, but it's actually born in the 1st of April, which is April Fool's Day. And we see this is a secret society founded country, and we see that the use of radical religion to play as card in political control is used, okay? And then other countries' sovereignty is infiltrated, and they have to deal with this kind of weird card that is being played to create a certain chaos, but not the type of chaos that creates the order that's good for humanity, but the type of chaos that uses ritual sacrifice of human lives and ritual torture. And this is also the Shah, by the way, was torturing people at the end of the regime. So I do not idealize the Shah or the monarchy, but it's obvious that this is one case where it's very clear to see that was a man-made country, very likely involved the West, then involved secret societies, okay? So one of the policies of China, we don't want that. Nobody does that in our land. But when we talk about organ trade, who are the customers of organ trade? China manufactures for the whole countries, so it's very likely the West. So this is another thing that when we think about God is in the details, it's both Saturn playing its part in Pisces and opposing Virgo, but this is also when Jupiter Gemini comes in, it's going to magnify it even more. Also, when we talk about omens and spirits, okay, I'm working on my garden and I've been tending to kind of like the biometric discourse, the Sedna discourse, but also cold cases. And one of the lovely cases, things that happened today, I felt like my guidance was saying to me, the freeze, the freeze, the freeze. I was like, what the freeze? And they were reminded me, because I give ownership to Uranus in Taurus, and to present cold cases from 2017 or 2005 to bring into these eclipses. And so I was buying a plant of persily, and I was checking how to grow this persily. One of the omens I get from the freeze-related issues, okay, I'm not saying that he talks to me, no, that's not what I'm talking about, but it's more like I'm reminded to do this, was the fingerprint. And that was in the website that explained how to grow the persily. The icon was a fingerprint that is the shape, a tree that is the shape of a fingerprint with green and brown. And I was like, what is going on here? And then I was like, oh, it's Friday. Yes, I must do something related to this. Yes, of course, the cold cases. And then I put some cold cases on my Twitter that maybe is possible for people to solve. So I was getting the freeze. I was like, what, the freeze now? What is it? Oh, I have to do this. Yes, it's this project that I'm doing. And this is also where you see kind of God in the little details. Okay, so a little detail, a little omen, something to do with the finger, the fingerprints is something that is can become ominous. We also see it when we talk about like cult and media. So cult and media, we saw it in the music industry. Finding out, what is this thing that Beyonce did with the fingers, with the diamond shape, or Taylor Swift with what seems like a very chic design of kind of like one leg is covered with pants and the other is free. I did not know it's kind of like Luciferian, kind of like one with the dark and one with the light, and so on. And in essence, you don't think of it much, but until you understand that to be a musician, then you have to be involved with certain cults that practice ritual torture and ritual sacrifice. And you see, this is how you get the entire chain, of from Jay-Z to Puff Daddy to everybody being exposed for running. House said that Jaguar, right? He said black on black for Jewish dollars. I don't like this use so much because, we should not be we should not be against people for something that just certain families do, that they have the wealth and most of the others don't. Just like we should not hate on black people because black monarchies robbed Africa of its gold using slaves and even white slaves. So we should not hate on black people for that. So this is my point also when it comes to other religions and origins or races or whatnot. But it does denote of the power structure. Gemini is trade and business. So the movie The Trustful, which I talked about earlier today, I haven't seen it. It's not in my area. But it's very likely for those things to be involved with kind of like small details. God is in the little details. So we're going to see who is with who by a little detail, minor details, so even microscopic details in this way. And this is also how Mercury plays a role here. So the Jupiter is ruled by minor detail. How did I know? Okay, so if, let's say today I got the freeze. What about the freeze? Yes, Uranus is on the 22nd degree of to kill and be killed. Cold cases. It's a Friday. It's a Venus day. Put some cold cases on this. That's what I did. And then I was just buying a plant, and on the when I see the fingerprint, I'm like, okay. Or when I saw it with sheeps. So Freya had a beautiful video about the message, and then she said not all hands are supposed to be held and you should be moving forward and so on. And then there was something to do with the forward, and then I saw there were a picture of many ships that they had the shape of a fingerprint. I'm like, many ships, the shape of a finger, biometric, and that's what prompted my biometric thing, but also my attending to how cold cases that Mr. Geslaffer brought to value, not only that are actually solved today if we are taking into account the 2030 agenda. and that is how a little detail, okay, like a fingerprint picture plays a part and is ruling a grand belief. So think about the symbolism that is down to a picture or a symbol or a tiny detail. This the swastika is not to this direction but to that direction. This is more a Virgoian thing. But when we go into, first of all, it's still in play because the axis is active in 2024 to 2026. But then also when we are talking about Gemini, we can think about certain twos, certain dualities, certain minor details. Okay, two details. You have two of something. For example, one of the ways I have, I saw an Israeli Twitter account, that he is raising awareness to the way Israel was infiltrated by 2030 agenda and the role it played in 7th of October, where and the kidnapping of the Yemeni children, and indeed the kidnapping of the Yemeni children came back to the forefront right before the war and was suppressed again. They exposed it, then they suppressed it, and then the 7th of October. I'm like, okay, this is a very interesting sequence of events. And he said, and there were bots that were commenting on his channel, and he said to them, I'm sick of you. You always come in trees. And this is true. I saw this too, and they tried to psychically attack me. Then they would use trees. I wrote sugar-free lemonade, they would use 3 lemons. I worked with algal, so algal has 3 phases. So it's like 1, 2, 3. But also the good things. Okay, so like 1, 2, 3. Teach you how to do this trick, how to do that trick, but they always come in trees. And so the number 2 right now, I think, is going to be 2 of something is going to be significant with Gemini. So pay attention to omens regarding to the 2 thing, or an omen that can have a dual meaning can also be the point with that. The inversion of something, the flip side of something. Okay, one of the spells that certain people try to do on me, and maybe you have experienced this too, is that they try that if I will manifest something, I will get the flip side of it. And so eventually what got is that I got the flip side of what they asked me to get. Okay, so let's say if I manifested freedom and they wanted me to be in jail, I put them in jail because I expose what they do. But I'm a moral person, so I don't support breaking human rights. I actually support jail system to be actually rehabilitating and supportive of making good choices in life, and so on. So in that way, it's not that I'm morally superior, it's just that I use my privilege of access to making good decisions and setting good intentions, and I milk every drop of that privilege because I'm aware that these people just don't have the access to do this at the point that they are at. And this is how I analyze these things. So this is as far as people would go, which is very funny in my opinion. But if you remember the videos that I said, I'm dealing a lot with these inversions. That's what it is. So more on what we can expect regarding this detail. Things that come into the flip side of something, the use of trickery and cunning, the necessity to use trickery and cunning in certain situations. So for example, when we were talking about, let's say, gaslighting, okay, then gaslighting is born in situations where people have to gaslight in order to survive. So let's say they have to steal, they have to run away from something, they have to get resources. If they don't steal, for example, one of the things when I was in Netherlands and I saw, if you don't steal, there's no way for you to survive. It's not, the system is structured so that you will make these mistakes, because then you are, if you're making these mistakes, now you are on the path to getting something. Also in Israel, yes, the only reason I got funding for my studies was because my checks went bad. If my checks would not go bad, nobody would hospitalize me. I could say I want to kill myself, I'm in a situation, I'm in a this. Nobody would hospitalize me. Nobody would pay attention to me. To go die. But when my checks went bad, now maybe they could recruit me. Now they give me funding for studies. Now I get invited to be accommodated with a social worker in a position as a full-time position. Now they help me to sit in my room while I fix my things. Okay, now suddenly they see me. Okay, until I don't comply with what the agenda that they want, then I was in the street. Very simply put, in the street. And I was, I'm sorry, stupid and naive. I thought, well, I didn't like that this way it goes, that I had to do something, get to the point where my checks go bad so that they will pay attention to me and help me. Because the whole thing started because I didn't want to take a loan for studies. I didn't want to commit to something because I couldn't keep a job with this cultish works. I didn't know it was the cult. I just saw it so corrupted and I felt unhealthy in those places. So job was bad, but I like to study, so say at least give me degree. And I had to be in a situation where my checks went bad in order to somebody to say, oh, this is cuckoo person. So now it's like I committed, for them, it's like I committed an offense and maybe I will do more things for the cult. But actually I would expose the cult because I didn't like the fact that I had to reach this position when my checks went bad at first place. Yes, I wouldn't take credit, and the only reason I would have credit card is because I studied Dutch and then I studied import-export. Just for the studies, I'm not good with like the small numbers, because I wanted to study something and then I couldn't do a degree. Okay, so this is where we get this type of discussion upon the economic system, the trade system, the philosophical, social workers. It's very much Gemini as well. Okay. And this is where a lot of people are going to be awakened to certain situations. When the eclipses was in Sagittarius Gemini, then I was literally in the street. I was supposed to do doggy sitting, by the way. And then it was cancelled. And I was one night in the street. I said, okay, it shouldn't be so bad. Because for many people it can happen what happened to me. So surely there's some accommodation. There wasn't. And in Netherlands, only because of COVID there was. And then, of course, you see the people, the two nurses that tell you that there are not enough shifts during a global pandemic. And they say, oh, I work for the Patat and my money goes to Germany and the this and the that. Okay, fine. I'm like, I'm an aromatherapist, but I can't really treat patients when I'm not allowed to heal myself. So, yeah. This is where it goes. Like, I don't mind paying 52% tax, but I want to see that my tax go to people, that people are not homeless, that people are not trying to be recruited, that people don't try to recruit them every place, that they don't have to depend on a global pandemic to have housing in my country, that they're not human traffickers here in the country that legalizes sex work, that legalizes drugs, that legalizes everything. There shouldn't be these things. Yes, it's not the taxes that bothers me. Why should I pay like flight ticket on the train when I work in healthy, I would pay 52% tax, and gladly so, if it was supportive of the people. So I was not the person to try to recruit to those things, but I definitely understand the people that go to them because they already know. They're not naive as I was. They already know, and this is the options that are open for them. By the way, one way to get a food voucher, I had a non-Berber Moroccan, elderly woman friend. She took me to a church and the imam opens the door. There was a group of Berber Moroccans. I had to very watch my language because I couldn't say I'm from the United States. I couldn't say I'm from Israel, and I could definitely not say I'm Dutch because they had better Dutch than me. So this is true, you know. And so we get with there in hope they will get a food voucher. And so later she got a food voucher and she gave me food voucher for 15 euros. And then you would have to go sometimes to the other side of the city to get this food voucher, which of course you had no ticket for the for the transportation, you will have no money. And if you don't have a digital bank account, then you also very much cannot buy anything, even a cup of coffee and the Starbucks. So this is something that I just had to like, oh, it's Netherlands, deal with. And still, it was more accommodation than what I got in the country that I was born and raised in, like my nationality, being dual nationality. And so I'm very grateful for what I did get, yes. And this the most people would come from all Europe to the winter shelters in Netherlands. So you can imagine that this, what is the situation. That's another thing that Mercury tends to, is the social affairs, the trade. It can be a class war as well, okay? It's affiliated with kind of like the question of slavery and the civil war. So there can be at least the imagery of a class war, people becoming wise about the topic where Gemini is in their chart. The eclipses that war are getting another point of view, another image. Okay, so to me now, when I hear right-wing leaders talk about, Islam infiltrating Netherlands and so on, I'm like, darling, I had to get a food voucher by the imam as a Dutch. Of course, the people are going to go to the Berber Moroccans, and what is from there to recruit them to protests, to terror, to anything to take over the country is very easy. What you have to do is to make sure that I, as a Dutch, don't have to go to get food vouchers from the imam, because I will go where the food vouchers are. If I don't want to steal later, I would have to learn how to steal. So what, I should be only criminal or radically Islamic, or enabling radical Islam? Okay, we have to deal to this. This I would not know if I was not in the winter shelters in Netherlands in COVID during the lockdown. I would not know this. And this is in Netherlands, the country that treats homeless people the best after Finland. So what would the rest of the world say? Okay, even there was a social worker at the airport, which was very kind to me. She said, you're coming from Israel, it's not exactly asylum country, so I cannot apply for asylum for you. But we'll see that winter shelters, maybe they can help, because that was escaping violence and no accommodation in Israel. Those in Israel is the most desired passport, very likely in most of the world. And next, or before that, is Netherlands. Yes? So this is not me whining about my sorry state. This is telling you that if I, with my education, with my nationalities, just because I do not enable the cult, was in this situation, what will the rest of the world say? Very much like Assange said about the people of the country itself, like, the countries where human rights violations were. He said, these people, they don't need to hear WikiLeaks. They know it. They see it every day. The West needs to know. You need to know that the minute you do not enable the cult, you draw your money from your 401k, you draw your money from those investments. You will be in my situation or in Assange situation, both of which include psychic torture, violation of your freedom of movement, or you have to be completely in the street, delays in your receiving housing. Many of the people, almost all of the people that were with me in the winter shelter got housing. And I'm very glad. There was another person reaching out to me. They thought maybe I'm still in Netherlands. They said, are you okay? Can we help you? Of course, I did not involve him in anything because I don't want to ruin his housing. I don't want to ruin their conditions. I don't want them to not have housing because they helped me or something like that. But this is something that you really need to understand. Jupiter Gemini is not for all of you is going to make this. For some of you, it's just going to be jolly, entertaining. The Sedna part, yes, it's annoying, but most of you, it's not going to be a grand, big thing. I have Rahu in Gemini. For those of you with placement in Gemini, again, what you need to be cautious of is around the eclipses. And it's not cautious because the fated things are going to happen. If somebody would ask me, like, why am I homeless with all my education, practical education, actually practicing aromatherapy, practicing astrology, going from this to that, and all of my privileges and other my passports, like, how come this is so fucking weird? What is going on? Well, I went through a life path of not enabling the cult. And now, when things are coming to another situation, so the 7th of October, immediately I think Lada posted something, I told her, we are Maui. We are Maui. As the rockets were falling, as the villages were slaughtered and invaded. And the ritual sacrifices saw this immediately. I had a Facebook friend, I don't know if she's Palestinian or pro-Palestinian, and I saw in the beginning she posted a candle on the figurine of a woman with a decapitated head. With this, instead of the head, it was a candle. I thought it was commemoration. And I had no idea. For me, it didn't make difference, Palestinian, Israelis, just we people. And then I learned that she was doing this as ritual sacrifice. And I was like, this is so wrong. From a occult perspective, it is so wrong. She was very knowledgeable about all the fixed stars, and just like I would look into her channel to learn the esoteric status. Very knowledgeable. It's like, this is so fucking weird. Because people have been, you know, I cannot be more exact about speaking against blood sacrifice. Learn from Africa. Africa changed this. African shamans and healers and magicians, okay, they would put hibiscus instead of where you would put blood sacrifice. Not even the Abrahamic religions that would put an animal, okay, and eat from the animal. Even more advanced, they would put hibiscus, they would put a flower. Oh, of course, for the Nordica, we talk about menstrual blood that is ethical. Okay, just like it's naturally occurring and you just collect the blood. But you see that, like, this is so outdated and this is so bad because of goal, it denotes of the karma of such acts. So this woman was basically doing something so destructive. You should have to work so hard to repent. For doing that, ritual rape of people, this is something that was like, oh, I cannot believe this. I cannot believe. Of course, I blocked immediately this account, I disengaged. But it was such a shock to me to see a woman doing this, supporting, supposedly. This is something that's coming, so making it difficult to access the actual Palestinian people. But it's still the people that you know, that are not doing this, are not involved with this, like there's still, you know, things that will be happening in the favor of all humanity, I think. So those fated things, yes, they occur. The depth of the cardinal axis is because it's involving applied philosophy and applied religion. And applied science and engineering. So this is taking a philosophy into practice, and there are very difficult transitions. Okay, if you think about it, you have a great idea, then you want to engineer it. Okay, like I ordered this cool air condition. It doesn't send like this pollution gas. It doesn't cost too much, and then you put some ice in it and water. It's like, it's very nice. The idea is very cool. It cools the hand. Okay, so like this would probably need another work to become a product, to become something that you can actually use technologically. or something that you can actually apply. Okay, so this is when you are doing the praxis of certain belief system. Okay, like when I was trying to do Abraham Hicks, and I did not know that people would go as far as to try to target your manifestation and bring it like the opposite of what you manifested. I didn't imagine that there would be people doing like this. And my belief, Abraham Hicks' belief system does not accommodate for that, so I was trying that. And of course, there would be holes in my manifestations. And then I was like, oh, some things are easier to manifest, so maybe astrology is more accommodating as a theory. And then when I learned about the cult, and I was like, oh my God, like people will actually bother to do a ritual and invest their energy in my manifestations, which anyway I can alchemize. Like you send something to my way, I will alchemize it to make it good for me and for humanity. If I give you back to senders, you get a gift from me because you get your energy back. But otherwise, I will just, we'll make it alchemy. Those things are going to be alchemy is very much what Mercury does with Jupiter. So yes, the people who have not dealt with inversions, they're going to see that too. Just as Jupiter or Rahu Jupiter phases open us up to those beliefs, occults, manifesting. Saturn has given us like a huge reality check on that. And Jupiter in Gemini, people will try to manifest technology, so manifest a plane, manifest this, manifest that, and Saturn is kind of like the dead reality of it. Flying cars is a lot of rockets added to the skies, with way more accidents than we now have, because now we have it only in commercial planes and combat planes, which is big enough for trouble. Okay, although flying cars could be very exciting. It could be not having to depend on an airport, a commercial airport to fly, which was saved for the rich up until now. So then again, it's applying a great idea, but the application takes trial and error, and Saturn adds kind of big reality check, but also big incarnations. This is a materializing of applied science, materializing of engineering. It's time, okay? This is where it is time. It's time for you to apply this technology. It's time for you to apply, let's say, astrological magic. It's time for you to do that, okay? So whether it brings mistakes and it brings this and trial and error, it's time for you to do this. Saturn is not here to kill your dream, but it is to incarnate it. And here your dream has some application in the real world. Okay, for me, for example, when Rahu was in Gemini, it was time to me to move to a bigger house with the yard. But where I was at consciously, thinking with this small mindset of, oh, in Netherlands, I will never get this big apartment. On a one-room apartment, okay, this was close to the university where I got sexually harassed at. Okay, so with this mindset, and it was not a lack mindset, it was an abundant mindset, but it was a Dutch abundance mindset. Hey, I would never get more than that anywhere else. I'm so grateful. So Jupiter's gratefulness, and when you're grateful, something is increasing. And so I was going through a tremendous crisis, and I had to, when I was in between houses, so instead of thinking whether they close the shelter or not close the shelter, I was channeling, I was taking, go pick the carpet for the house, go pick the door for the house, go pick the type of furniture for the garden, go imagine the garden. Okay, I was taken a step by step, and it was very difficult for me, but I had to apply. And sometimes I was like, is this real? Is this real? You have to go with both of the manifestation, but also to take action towards these things. And I was shown one by one, okay? So not only like bad infiltration, psychic attack, blah, 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 but also actual genuine teachings, applied teachings. So this is how you do it. Instead, not worry about the close the shelter, they don't close the shelter. Go and pick your furniture, go and do this. Go physically to the shop, assemble the things that you want to buy. Look at that. Begin to design this place. Look at places. Bless houses. It's very, very difficult. Every day I thought I was going to die. So, and every day I could die. So that was the issue. And then when I finally had this like residence, then there was, of course, eventually the 7th of October war. Fortunately, I was not evacuated back then. But some people, they went through all this, and then they had another issue with the housing where they were evacuated. And I think for some of them it's the rentals, because they rented the place that they were looking for 3 years for this place, but they rented the place. They didn't buy the place. It's like you go all this distance for this. Now I know I also rented the place. I didn't buy the place. Okay, so I know that is. And whenever I'm being shown something of real estate, it's like, hey, look, your kitchen this needs to be bigger. Your showers this to be. I don't want to hear about it now. But if my row is in the sign of the real estate, then it is so. And this is another thing that Jupiter Gemini eclipses are going to bring. Whatever your Gemini house is meant to manifest, if you have planets there, and you will be forced to apply this. And it's not perfect, but it also in many cases is bigger than your wildest dreams. And in some places it's not perfect, but it's the actual manifestation of things, what it feels like to actually be in a flying car, actually to drive a flying car. Yes, it's not perfect, but it's also way beyond your wildest dreams. So we are asked now to go to the meticulous aspects of actually incarnating the desires and going through the trial and error without rejecting the whole idea, because it's not as easy and smooth as we thought it would be. Okay, so most of you are going through this process with your lives. Some of you is also involving bigger things. If you have an outer planet involved in this, it's involving the ingress, but if you have another outer planet involved with Mercury or Jupiter in your natal chart, you are a part of a collective story. Okay, this is where you want to take this 3 hours of video and you want to play it, and you want to play it again, and you want to play it again, and you want to listen to every single thing that I said on this video, like people read the Bible. Okay, I have the signature of Pluto and Neptune. I'm an outer planet person. If you have this in your natal chart, even in a transit, even in an eclipse affiliated, you want to be taking this and treating it like the Bible in both ways. One, that you want to understand every letter that's written and the many underline and associations that come with that. Two, is that you want to write your own. Okay, so that this is not just like the Bible, it cannot teach you anything more than what you can in your sovereignty teach yourself. Okay, so you want to treat it like the Bible in both these senses. You want to study it thoroughly, and you want to understand what here fits you and what here doesn't fit you, because you're going through a process that is relevant to the collective growth right now, and in which way your story is connected to the collective growth. Yes, I think this is enough for this one. So I managed to do the Jupiter Gemini, the ingress, the eclipses, axis, some ways in which things can unfold regarding that 15-minute CT, the connection to between how they treat, let's say, the homeless people or the disabled people, or how the medical field has infiltrated these things and infiltrated medicine at first the connection to children, trade, but also religious satire and the light-hearted things to do with that. That's it.